Aidan, how's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming. Great to have you here. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then we have volunteers in the audience with microphones ready to go. So if anyone has a question they'd like to ask Aidan, just put your hands up. Our volunteers will come and find you, and we'll take it from there. But I suppose to start off with, Aidan, you co-founded Cohere in 2019, and you were a researcher in AI for years before that. So with your experience in the field, has anything surprised you with the way AI has kind of captured the world's imagination in the last year or so?
Yeah, loads of things have surprised me. I definitely didn't expect that it would be chatbots and dialogue agents that did it. It's like obvious in retrospect. Like dialogue is what we're doing right now. It's our default mode of interacting with each other. And so I think it's obvious in retrospect, but I didn't see it coming. I didn't think that would be the thing that lit up the world. But yeah, it's been surprise after surprise, from the technical side to the public's interest. And it's been really gratifying to see people sort of, I don't know if it's wake up or actually, it's probably more correctly said as like get to feel what it feels like to interact with these models. For a long time, they existed in private labs where only us researchers were playing with them, experiencing this, seeing this. And now everyone has access, and they have first-party experience with the models themselves. And it's really gratifying that people love it as much as we do.
Great. Well, I think we'll go to the audience now. Does anyone in the audience have a question they'd like to ask Aidan? Just raise your hand. Okay, we have a lot. So we'll try and go. Let's go from the front row first. Yep, this gentleman here. And just hold the microphone up close to your mouth so everyone can hear you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I'm interested if you could talk about the human element in developing AI models. Like what kind of people do you use? How many people are there? Where are they located? Because there's a lot of news around that in different companies.
Yeah, so for us, we partner with organizations. We also have internal contractors that we employ. They're mostly, for the internal contractors, they're based here in Toronto, they're based in London. I think it's terrible to, put people in front of content that could be harmful for them without paying them appropriately for going through that and without providing them the necessary support. I've heard the same stories and read the same stories that you have. I would say that the humans we employ, the humans that we contract, they tend to be in the States, Canada, or the UK, where we're paying them above minimum wage, not even minimum wage. And so that's where we focus our efforts. And we're constantly reviewing our suppliers to understand where those people are located, what their compensation looks like, and what the standards of work look like. So yeah, I care a lot about that. Thanks for the question.
Yes, perfect.
So from a startup operator perspective, compute is a big issue. So we're not in a position where 200 million, Mustafa just got 1.3 billion. We're getting kicked off our clusters on CoreWeave, et cetera, trying to train these models. So what do you kind of have as a potential solution for small startups getting in this space, wanting to train models, et cetera? How would you kind of provide some sort of guidance as far as what we can do to be actually innovating on areas where large organizations are just not going to be working on?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm sorry to hear you're getting kicked off your cluster on CoreWeave. That's horrible. I had no idea that was happening. Yeah, compute, there's a huge crunch, and everyone's competing for it, and clearly it's flowing towards the people who have the most resources. If you're a startup right now looking for compute, I mean, one thing I would say is maybe don't focus on training the largest models. It's a super compute-intensive, resource-intensive game, and there's increasingly more players in the space. And so focus on the place that you can compete, which is in the product space, the application space above that. And so, Cohere would love to partner with you. Our whole strategy is to not compete with our customers. We don't want to build applications. We want to be a platform for startups to build on top of. We've seen some others in the space not follow that so well. And they started off as a platform, just as an API, and then they start launching products that compete with their customers. So we're trying to be better about that. We do have a good compute resource allocation. So whether you're fine-tuning, whatever it is, we'll help you get access to that through us. So I guess one strategy is partnering. If you have to do it yourselves, I think you're going to have to look for alternative sources of compute. Obviously, Google is pushing TPUs. Hopefully, the chip supply chain on that side frees up. And so maybe think about diversifying your stack. If you need H100s, then it's going to be a fight. Yeah.
We might try one from the back. We'll go back and forth. Let everyone get their steps in.
Aidan, just for context, my question. So I'm Joseph Jewellins. I'm a professor at University of Toronto in human-computer interaction and AI. And so we're trying to apply LLMs to different products, mental health, education, business settings, also incorporating randomized experiments and trying to incorporate psychology. So like you had in my undergrad at U of T. So I think my question to you is, if you think about Cohere, what are the big problems that you have right now that you wish someone would solve for you? People like me. If you could get professors in human-computer interaction who know about reinforcement learning, LLMs, AI, to work with psychologists to solve a problem, you'd pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to solve this problem. Is it about user adoption of your technologies? Is it about finding ways to use crowdsourcing to improve what you're doing? Is it evaluating the content of generative AI by using randomized A/B experiments more adaptively so you can figure out how to personalize content to people? Like, what are the problems you'd solve? Is it making chatbots better because instead of just having an AI model, you embed frameworks for experimentation in every piece of the interaction?
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. I would say we're so early in the dialogue agent space, and so there's a whole psychology, product experience, product design problem, which is totally unexplored, which is what is the personality that users want to interact with in each context? How do we as Cohere craft that? And for Cohere, we're a platform. We're supporting a range of companies in every single industry, every application. The type of chatbot that you want to talk to if you're just shooting the shit and chatting about the news or whatever is very different than the one you want talking to you about a diagnosis, right, in medicine. And so how do we capture that breadth, and how do we actually codify and describe what is the personality we want users to be presented with when they talk to these bots in each of those circumstances, and how do we best encode that personality into the model? We're trying to think about this now, and it's a really difficult problem. It's going to take us a year, 2 years to even get roughly competent at being able to capture that breadth. And so any help we can get on that would be fantastic.
I saw you say recently in a piece that you feel like the doom and gloom stories can be a bit misleading when it comes to AI. Where do you think the public narrative is kind of going astray, and why do you think that's happening?
It's actually turned back a bit recently. Within the past 2 weeks, I've seen a bunch of Nature put out a statement against the whole doomsday AI scenario. It's coming out more, and so I'm actually right now quite optimistic that public narrative might be changing. Where I think it's going astray is since well before even computers, literally for the past century, humans have been imagining a non-human intelligence, like an automaton, a machine that is as capable or even more than humans. And in all of those stories, the most compelling thing is it's like an alien. It takes over. It's aggressive. It wants to destroy humanity. And so for literally 100 years, predating the notion of computers and everything, we've been sown this narrative. And so it's deep in the public psyche. And so it's easy to latch onto that. And it's easy to latch onto those fears and aggravate them. I was talking to someone in actually the psychology department recently at U of T, and he was saying when you talk to psychologists, right now, the psychotic breaks that are happening, they're all about AI. The fear is steeped in society, and I think a lot of experts are kind of aggravating that or intensifying it. And so that's such a natural place for us as a society to focus on because we've been telling ourselves this story for so long. That's not to say that those ideas aren't important. It's an important debate to have. The long-term risk of this technology is extremely important. But the way that it dominates, the way that it pushes out all other conversation and just latches into the minds of everyone, I think it's dangerous and misleading.
Next question. Yep, right here.
Awesome, thanks. Super interesting. Switching gears a little bit. So for a layman like myself who works in programmatic advertising, understands the power of AI and algorithms and the efficiencies it can create, how would someone like myself kind of best, kind of get started with using generative AI, either for the team I manage at my company, or even in my personal life as a busy dad with 2 kids? How do I find efficiencies with generative AI?
I mean, the best thing is to start playing with it. The nice thing about it is you can just talk to it. And so it's a very easy onboarding experience. You don't need to read a textbook or go through some course. You can literally just start talking to it and experimenting with, okay, what happens if I ask it to do this? What happens if I give it this data and it fails or it succeeds? You start to build a intuition about kind of the boundaries of the technology as it is today. And over time, as we improve these models, as we launch new ones, you're going to get a feel for the direction we're heading and the opportunities for your specific business or for you personally to loop it in as part of your work and your day-to-day. So honestly, I think the best way to interact with it is to test it and dedicate time to interacting with this thing. Like, find the bounds of its knowledge, find the bounds of its capability, understand how asking it this way doesn't work and asking it that way does work, and build your intuition as to how to use this tool. That'll really give you the lens and the familiarity with it to understand how you can apply it within your own context.
This gentleman over here.
Hello, Aidan. So I just want to ask about the doom and gloom going back and forth. How does your company actually think about things like diversity, equity, and inclusion and discrimination when you're building tools for other companies to then use the tools, and how they're going to use it, because you don't exactly get a say in exactly how they're using it? How are you protecting people of color, people of the LGBTQ community, to then not have things coming back at them?
So we actually do have a say. So I think I would never absolve myself as a responsibility of what my customers are using my models for. We have a terms of service, and if it's not met, you don't get to use our models. And so if you deploy these models in settings that are inappropriate, that put users at risk, that propagate bias in a harmful way, we're not going to let you use Cohere's models. So I think the first thing to say is we have a terms of service. They need to be met. We do have an opportunity to intervene. On top of that, we monitor our users. We try to catch toxic use cases, dangerous use cases, and intervene. And then beyond that, we're doing everything we can to make sure the models we put out in the world don't carry forward those biases that may be present in the pre-training data, but that we can remove in the fine-tuning data before deployment.
Right here up front.
Hey, nice to meet you. Just wanted your opinion on what you think natural language processing will do for democratizing AI/ML for the everyday user. And I was just talking to my husband, and I was saying that in the next 2-3 years, you'll be able to do AI/ML with no knowledge of data analysis at all. And yeah, just wanted to take your opinion on that.
I think it's more than AI ML. I think it's programming in general. There was this quote from Andre Kaparthi a couple years ago, I think, where he was like, I had no expectation that the hottest new programming language would be English. And so now my mom can create a sentiment classifier because prompting is so intuitive and easy. So the breadth of people who can make compelling use of computers. Before it was programmers. You wanted to do something interesting with computers, you would need to learn how to speak the computer's language. Now we're starting to see the computers speak our language, and so that opens up the breadth of who can make compelling use of them. We have 40 million devs on the face of the planet. It should be 8 billion, right? So I think it's doing a lot to democratize, yeah, like you say.
And we'll go in the front row here again.
more of a business question, Aidan. You were made the news and got quite a crowd, at least part because of the major investment that some very high-profile entities have made in your company. What would you advise for other startups to attract that kind of attention? And for your own company, what sort of financing would you be looking at or needing going forward?
Yeah, I mean, well, right now we're in a really interesting time. Like the end of last summer, it felt like a low in the tech market. Now we're doing this rebound, but it's pretty much dominated by like the top 7 stocks in the public markets. In the private markets, so in startups, everything has taken a hit except for AI, and AI seems to be following that rebound. I don't know if that's necessarily fair, and I think that might be too much exuberance. And I would say, don't just do an AI company because that's the only thing you can do right now. Keep doing the important work outside of the field. If you are going to do AI, I think try to find something unique. I mean, it's kind of boring advice to say be differentiated, but it's starting to become crowded. And so you need to find your unique angle, and don't rely on hype. Always have proof points. I think there's so much interest in the space right now that it's kind of true that anyone can get funded if they have a .ai domain. That's a problem. That's not good for our field. That's not the way it should be. And so really focus on making progress in product space and building something genuinely valuable. For my own company, I happen to be in what is probably one of the most competitive races of the past quarter century. And it's an extremely capital-intensive business. So we need to build supercomputers, which are some of the most complex and sophisticated machines humans have built. And so we need to raise a lot of capital to do the work that we do. And I will continue to need to do that until I build a strong enough business to self-sustain. I think on the market side, ever since these models became much more popular and available, something has switched on. So the buy-side intent in enterprise is 100% there. The C-suite, the boards of all these companies, they know they need to do something in AI. And now they're starting the work to actually transform their products and businesses with AI, whether it's creating a new interface onto their product. If you're a bank, your consumer customers are going to expect to be able to chat to an intelligent bot instead of sitting on the phone for 30 minutes to get some transaction resolved. So you're going to have to be implementing that right now. So the buy-side intent is there. People are ready. And so I'm really optimistic that the world we live in 18 months, this stuff is going to be part of all of our daily lives. We're going to be interacting with these models all over the place. What you're seeing with Bing Chat, what you're seeing with Bard, the first multi-billion user products are getting LLMs in the loop. And so it's really happening. Like the project is actually taking off. So it's an exciting moment. I kind of describe it as a year ago, we were like pre-awareness. I would go into meetings and I'd be like, we're building LLMs, here's what that stands for, please care. And I'd be shooed out. And now all those people have come back being like, my board's breathing down my neck, please tell me what I'm supposed to do. And so we're now post-awareness, but we're pre the actual transformation. And so brewing like under the water is all of these organizations doing the work to integrate these models, to bring them into the fold. I'm really excited to see where we're at in a year or 18 months.
We probably have time for one more question. So yes, right here.
Hi, my name is Aaron. I'm with BetaKit. I was wondering, so Hinton raised the alarm yesterday about AI, but some other VCs, especially top tier ones, believe these concerns are a little bit overblown. I'm curious, what's your take on this?
I've spoken a bit about it publicly. First off, I'll say Hinton is the smartest person I've ever met and worked with. When he talks, I listen. So I take what he says very, very, very seriously, but listen very specifically to what he says. I would say we perhaps have differing opinions on the extent of existential risk. We don't have differing opinions on risk. it's clear there's risk with this technology. It's a generally capable technology that can quite easily impersonate a human. There's risk in that technology, obviously, right? And so we don't disagree that there's risk. I think it's where the risk is that there might be room for debate, and there's certainly room for more public discussion around stuff away from the existential side and towards the more present, immediate, midterm.
I think we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but I want to thank Aidan for joining us. And
Thank you
you all.
for having me.